Hey, David Brewster here with a new episode of Chordplay. This is Ted Greene's Chord Chemistry, and I've had some requests to feature the late, great, legendary musician and guitarist Ted Greene. And although Ted may not really be a household name, for everyone out there, a lot of his educational material and books and that legacy is known in most households. But there's no question, Ted Greene was a monster, masterful musician. Think of like beginner, intermediate, advanced, professional. Ted Greene was a Jedi. He was Yoda, with a guitar. Just a monster. I mean, I can't really express or explain how well he really understood music. It was just flowing out of his fingers effortlessly. And what an inspiring guitarist, and definitely kind of misunderstood. And this video is going to be a humble attempt at paying tribute to this masterful and very important musician. So here we go. So during Ted's career and lifetime, he only released one album, solo guitar, and good luck finding a copy of that. You can find it like digital, versions online to listen to, but I've been trying to track down, that album on vinyl for years, and I can't find a copy anywhere. So it's not really an album thing. That's one reason why I didn't begin, with an opening jam or performance, because Ted's thing was more educational. His books and educational material and lessons. Group lessons, private lessons, and definitely an educator and teacher. Also a performer. He did perform a lot, just not on massive concert stages. He didn't perform like massive world tours or anything like that. He just kind of stayed, like kind of in the general region where he lived. And then when he would leave his practice room and step up on stage or play, I mean, everybody would just stop and look and listen to Ted Greene, a monster. And then here's an image with some of his famous instructional books, including Chord Chemistry. So I could literally sit here for an hour and try to convince you, of Ted Greene's legacy and importance and influence. But instead of doing that, I'm going to leave it to three legendary guitarists. Here are quotes from Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, and Steve Lukather about Ted Greene. Okay, the first example in this episode actually came from Ted's legendary, that's beyond legendary, his book Chord Chemistry from 1971. And I've actually purchased this book more than any other book in my library. And that's because as an educator and a guitar instructor, I've loaned this book out to friends and students, and then I never got it back. But it never really bothered me because I felt like, well, they didn't return it, so maybe they're really diving into it. Or maybe they burned it or something, they got frustrated and burned it. But, whenever I would loan out a book or a magazine or an album or something, if I didn't get it back from the student or the friend, I just left it. Like, okay, maybe they're getting something from it, and I'd go out and replace it. So this is technically the fourth, I think like the fourth or fifth copy of Chord Chemistry that I picked up. And I was going through my library, and I've got a lot of stuff in storage, in bins and stuff. And I was kind of just doing inventory, I guess, and just looking, and I couldn't find my copy of Chord Chemistry, which was the old, cover and the old copy. So I ordered this. I guess this was last year. And on the website that I ordered this from, it had the original old school cover. But then when this book showed up, I was like, what's this? And then I saw it says Ted Greene Chord Chemistry. So if you've seen this on the marketplace out there, the front cover and back cover are different. And you can see they've used this kind of this style or this theme or whatever for a lot of books. But I can assure you on the inside, it's totally Ted Greene's, it's in the old font, the old handwritten, chord diagrams and stuff. So if you see this book, this is Chord Chemistry. It's just not the original old school cover. So I wanted to show you this first example I'm sharing from Chord Chemistry. It actually takes place during the introduction on page 1, so right at the beginning of the book. And I remember when I first learned from this book, I mean, that was a long time ago, but the first time I sat down with Chord Chemistry, I read this introduction like 2 or 3 times. And it really put a light bulb over my head, because he's basically talking about encountering a chord that might sound dissonant or downright crummy, and then not really understanding how to use it until you put it in a chord progression. And that'll kind of show you how different chords and chord voicings and chord progressions can kind of help you use, certain weird or strange sounding chords. So the chord in question's right here. Alright, that's an E flat minor major 9, and the root note is technically D. But it's technically E flat minor major 9. Think like, E flat harmonic minor. Right, that's the tonality it's serving. Like that. So he's basically talking about, hitting that chord and wondering, like, well, how can I use this chord? It sounds kind of weird. But then he starts talking about, putting it in a chord progression. So Ted does this. Right? And he just kind of puts it like in a series of chords. There's E flat minor. There's the E flat minor major 9. Then this is E flat minor 7 right here. So that's a really cool progression. E flat minor, E flat minor major 9, E flat minor 7, and then like a B over F sharp, or you could play like B major 7, over F sharp or something there at the end. But what a cool progression. But that's showing you, like, if you encounter a really strange chord, don't dismiss it, because you might be able to incorporate it in a progression and make it work. Okay, next up, this came from Ted's Guitar Player magazine lesson from the June 1980 issue with the chord voicings lesson. And this was definitely really eye-opening for me. That's why I wanted to include it and share it here. So he basically starts off talking about this. And talking about chord voicings. So that's an E minor 11 right there, right? Like that. But then he basically shows in the same position, you could basically revoice that chord. This is also E minor 11, but a different spelling. Right? Same chord, just different arrangement of notes. We've got that. That's putting an F sharp, way up at the top. And then the other voicing, the F sharp's hiding right there on the D string. And now there's an A, up on top of that chord. So this is eye-opening to notice, different voicings of the same chord. It does have a slightly different flavor, right? There's E minor 11, and there's E minor 11. And then he starts talking about just, different strings. So right here, this is like an E add 9. And, rearranging it down here, it's going to sound a little different. It's the exact same notes, same structure, but a different set of strings. It sounds a little warmer and bassier there, and then a little brighter right there. And you could change that E add 9 to an E minor add 9, just lower that G sharp to G. So there's E minor add 9, and then right there just get rid of the G sharp, play the open G string. And there's E minor add 9. And then he starts doing, there's a lot of different chords here. Then there's a D major 7, and he's arranged it like this. So tasty. But D major 7 right there. And then he rearranges that up here. Same exact chord, just a different, set of strings. Because there we were doing this. The D to the high E. And then there it's the A to the B string. So it's a little warmer and bassier. And then the last area here, he was doing stretch voicings for this B6. And he basically started, let's see, right here. So it's B6 right there. So there's one. And then the next one was over here. And then the last one's super stretchy because there's a fret between each of your fingers. But there's B6 again. And it's just kind of interesting to notice, how that chord kind of takes on different sounds depending on how it's voiced. Okay, next up, this idea came from Dale Turner's Ted Greene lesson tribute in Guitar One magazine. This was from March 2004. And Ted was talking about these Bach chorale voicings, like this. So they were basically doing the same thing in 3 different positions, but it starts with A, like that. You're barring A back here and grabbing the root right there. And and then B over A, and then it's E over G sharp, like that. So definitely a Bach flavor. It also reminds me of Steve Morse a little bit right there, Dregs. But there's A, B over A, E over G sharp. Then he does it again right here. There's C, C major. There's D over C, and then there's G over B right there. The exact same thing we did right there, but now it's right there. And I just like that movement and the sound. It has a really cool structured sound. We could do it again way up here. There's E, F sharp over E, and then right there that's B over D sharp. And you could also practice playing it backwards. Like that. And you could do that on all those. Definitely when you learn something, especially from a master like Ted Greene, don't forget to play around with it and see what comes out, because you might stumble onto a new progression for a song or just a new way of playing or approaching something. Things like that are really eye-opening. Okay, next up, once again, this is from Dale Turner, once again also from Guitar One magazine, but this was from the December 2005 issue, and there was a Ted Greene tribute lesson in that issue too. And this is Chromatic Contrary Motion, which is so unusual, but so cool. There it was. Contrary chromatic motion. So right there, we're basically moving chromatically on the low E. That E note is moving chromatically down to C. And then on the B string, we're starting on this G and moving chromatically up to B. Right? So that's basically what's happening behind the scenes. Like that, but he's doing it with chords. So right there, we're basically playing a C over E. And then it's going to change to this. That's an A flat 7 over E flat. Right? So from here, just 3 strings. That E, C, and that G. Then we're moving there, so now there's 4 strings for that A flat 7 over E flat. And then that's going to change to just a regular D minor 7 right there. And then a D flat 13. And then right there, that's G over C. So really slow. Really cool. Chromatic contrary motion. That's very unusual, but so inspiring. Okay, last but not least, this is also from the Dale Turner Guitar One magazine lesson from December 2005, and now we're hitting some voice leading ideas. This is really cool, like this. And voice leading is basically when the chords in a chord progression are arranged, and there's like this melodic and harmonic interest between the chords, and it creates this kind of counter melody and these harmonies within the chord progression you're playing. So it's almost like a melody hiding in a chord progression. And right there, those chords really do kind of lend themselves. It's like this slow, kind of mutual progression between those chords. So right there, it's basically starting with C, and then a G over B right there. Now it's C7 over B flat, and then an F over A, and then an F minor over A flat, and then a C over G, and then right there that's D minor over G, and then end on C major. So there's the first region or octave right here, and then right there to there, lower that G, or that A to G right there, or A to A flat rather, and then now we can also arrange that an octave higher. Let me do it one more time there. And then right there to right there. And then an octave higher, we could actually do it up here. And then like that, right there. That's really tricky. It's the exact same thing, but an octave higher. Here and there, and right there to right there. A is going to A flat. It's doing the exact same thing we did lower, but like that. So those type of exercises and examples from Ted Greene are mind expanding, mind blowing, musically expanding ideas. And that's a big bulk of what you'll discover either working through some of his books or lessons that appeared in guitar magazines. Definitely dynamite stuff, eye-opening stuff, and very inspiring. All right, that's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with Ted Greene's Chord Chemistry. And definitely, grabbing things from his book and from his guitar player lesson, not to mention the Dale Turner, Guitar One lessons. You can see there's a lot. And this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. This is like a fragment of the tip of the iceberg as far as Ted Greene's, knowledge and ability and his music. And this stuff just poured out of him effortlessly. So keep in mind, I was sitting here really concentrating and really kind of struggling to put it together. In Ted Greene's hands, this would just effortlessly flow. He'd probably take a nap in the middle of it because this would be way too easy for him. And that's the thing that's really shocking and mind-blowing to know about him, is just, he would just sit there with his guitar, and it sounded like an entire orchestra playing, but it's just one guy and a guitar, and there was just so much happening, chimed harmonics and just so much chord melody and things moving and mutating and expanding right on the fly, too. He just usually would improvise a lot of that stuff because he had it all up here. And it's just mind-blowing to really know, how good he actually was. And that's really rare. That's like the Michael Jordan of guitar. Yeah, everybody wanted to be Michael Jordan, just like, I want to be Ted Greene. But I'll probably never get there. I don't know if I'll ever actually be able to play, like a complete song of his. And really, Chord Chemistry, the book, that's a lifetime type of book. That's not a book you're going to read through once and then file it away or burn it or sell it. That's a book you can spend your entire life learning more and pulling more from that eternally classic book. Definitely, it's that deep, before you could claim that, you have chord chemistry mastered, which I've never talked to anybody that's like, yeah, I've got that book mastered. No, it's a lifetime, exploration and information, dive. That's a heavy book. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Nail Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.